If you take your water and you like gurgle it and you're like, water,
Mhm.
and you drink it, nom, 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 water, and you're making it really fun and then you hand it to them, they're going to be more apt to repeat that word after you.
You're listening to the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast, where you'll gain the knowledge and confidence you need to erase the unknowns of pregnancy and birth and rock the newborn days like a boss. My name is Liesl Teen. I'm a fellow mom, labor and delivery nurse, and your host. Each week on this podcast, you'll hear a mix of birth stories, expert interviews, and other fun pregnancy and birth-related content. As a reminder, anything you hear on this podcast is not medical advice. Please see mommylabornurse.com/disclaimer for more details. And now let's get into this week's episode. This week on the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast, I am joined by speech and language experts, Brooke and Bridget, who you probably know better as Speech Sisters on Instagram. Brooke and Bridget are certified speech therapists, and they have an incredible platform dedicated to getting your child talking. This is a really cool episode, you guys. I'm so excited to share it with you. So their Instagram page is full of easy tips and tools to use in your daily routines. They have 2 online courses to help your child meet communication milestones, lay a strong speech and language foundation, have confidence in your child's development, and more. And today I had the chance to talk to them all about what new moms can do to help their little ones with language development right from birth, because it's actually more than you'd probably think. So inside the episode, you'll hear us talk about key things moms can do right from birth, the role of baby sign language in early communication, examples of how to incorporate these things into daily routines, very early speech and language development, milestones to be on the lookout for, and lots more. So without giving it all away, let's hear from Brooke and Bridget. Interested in the possibility of an unmedicated birth? Make sure to grab my totally free and natural birth prep pack. It's full of free printable resources to help you start preparing for your even better birth. Inside the pack, you'll get access to our super popular hospital bag checklist so that you know your hospital bag is stocked with everything you need for the big day, traditional and visual birth plan templates to help you think through all the questions related to your birth and gain the sense of control that you deserve. Exclusive MLN birth affirmation cards, one of my favorite ways to tap into that mental strength during a natural birth, especially during natural birth. And finally, a 3rd trimester to-do list to feel completely at ease heading into labor, knowing you've checked every box. To grab all of this for free, simply head over to mommylabornurse.com/natural pack. That's mommylabornurse.com/natural pack to access your free natural birth prep pack today. Hi, Brooke and Bridget. Welcome to the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast. Thanks so much for being here today with me.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
for
having
having
us.
us.
Yeah. Can you guys start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourselves and where you're from, what you ate for breakfast, anything you want to share at all?
Well, I had a smoothie for breakfast. And it was
Yum.
delicious. So we are speech and language pathologists. We are mothers to 5 kids in total. I have 3, Bridget has 2, and we actually are sisters.
Mhm.
We live in Southern California, and we have a private practice here, which we have owned and operated for 10 years. And a couple of years ago, about 3 years ago, we decided that we wanted to reach more parents. And so we started an Instagram platform called Speech Sisters. And over the years, we've developed a couple of online courses, and our Instagram following has grown. And we are kind of living our dream where we're reaching hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Bridget, what did you have for breakfast?
What did I have for breakfast? Good question. I'm like, did I eat breakfast? No, I did. I did. Breakfast is very important, especially for mamas out there who are grinding. I had a piece of toast with avocado and egg.
Yum.
And that Trader Joe's salt, that like the everything
Yes.
bagel salt,
Oh, yeah, I got that in my.
that for life. Like that is
Yes.
everything.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, guys, we are going to be talking about all things that you guys are experts today, experts in today. But my audience is pregnant, so I figured we would kind of talk more like beginning newborn stuff. So I wanted to ask you this first question, like what are some key things that moms can do from birth? Like once that baby pops out of you, are there even any things that you can do? Like, you think, oh, my kid's not talking until they get older. There's nothing really that I can do. But apparently there are some things that you can do to foster that language development.
There's so much that you can do. And I think that is Brooke and I, like she said, we have 5 little ones, and all of them were early communicators. And I think that the reason why is because literally we were talking with them, talking to them, engaging back and forth with them from day one. Like it is never
Yeah.
too soon to get started. And that is why, we had that course for toddlers when parents are getting worried and they are, looking into speech therapy or and worried about those milestones. But we're like, you know what? Let's make a resource for parents and let's put information out there on how they can be proactive
Yeah.
and really, get in front of it and really work on these things from day one. And there's so much that you can do.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, are there any okay, if I hold them this way, there this is a good intervention, or if I talk to them about this, like this is a good intervention. Are there any really concrete things that you can actually do?
There absolutely are. You always, well, not always, but as much as you can, you want your baby from a very early age, you want them to face you and
Mm.
so they can see your facial expressions and they can see how you move your mouth to talk because they really will tap into that. They've got those mirror neurons that are real things and they kind of mimic you without even knowing that they're doing it. Also, talking in that parent ease voice, that kind of
Mm.
sing-songy, exaggerated speaking style. Babies love this, and it really grasps their attention, and there is research out there that shows that they will learn more language when you speak to your baby in this way. And then just talking to them, and it can I remember with my first thinking, as a speech therapist, I remember thinking when she was a newborn, like it felt weird to talk to her because she was
Yeah.
just so small. But I talked about everything we did and I did it in a simplistic way and I used my parentese voice and like Bridget said, I mean, she was so early to talk and there really is so
Mhm.
much that you can do as a parent. It's just knowing the things, right? That we're not trained in that.
Yeah, and I think too, another really important thing is when your little one starts vocalizing, right? When they start cooing, which happens very early on, you want to make noise back at them, coo back
Oh.
at them. When your baby starts babbling, babble back at them. You want to have that back and forth reciprocity because that's the beginning of communication. So
Hmm.
even if you're not saying real words and your baby says, ah, you go, ah, and then
Mm.
see if your baby will go back and forth with you, or if they say da da da, then you say da da da, and then try to go back and forth with your baby because that's when they go, "Whoa, I just made a noise," or "Mom or Dad just made it back at me, and that is so cool. And now I want to make it again." And that's the beginning of like the early stages of conversation, really.
Wow. That makes a lot of sense. I'm like, now I'm like, was I even doing that? like that makes a lot of sense
That
though.
you
Like,
were.
yeah, that no, that makes total sense. Well, let's talk about sign language because I know that is more popular, I think, now because people are like, oh, this is a way to communicate with my baby earlier than I thought. So, what are your opinions, I guess, on sign language and how does sign language kind of play all into this?
We say go for it. Research supports that, sign language will not delay a baby's verbal expression. It will actually increase it.
Yeah.
And it can certainly help with any frustration if a child isn't communicating. So we are advocates for it. We say go with it. If the intent is for your child to be verbal, you always want to pair that sign with the word, because ultimately you want them to speak and not just sign if that is your intention, of course. But
Mhm.
research says go for it. We say go for it. We did it with our own kids and it's very helpful.
Cool.
And also using gestures.
Mm,
That can be really helpful. So, if you're saying like hot and you're kind of like fanning yourself off, oh, it's hot. Or maybe you are, I don't know, saying something is big and you open your arms really, really wide and you say, it's big. And that really helps a child connect meaning to the word as well.
yeah,
So we do a lot of that too.
I love it. So kind of the more extravagant, you can talk with your hands and
Talk
your
with your
voice up and
body.
down it. Yes, yes.
Yes.
I love it. Well, I know you guys talk a lot about incorporating language development techniques and baby sign language into kind of your everyday routines. We already talked about this a little bit, but can you just share a couple of examples? Like, is there anything I can do while I'm changing my baby's diaper or while I'm cooking dinner? Or I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, this is kind of our MO. We are all about just very simply building in these language strategies to what you do every day because, parents, you shouldn't have to sit down and like teach your baby how to talk or, kind of have that more therapeutic routine. That's not what it's about. It's really about during those everyday routines that you are doing multiple times a day, like changing a diaper, incorporate the same language every time you do it, whether it's you
Mm,
singing a familiar song, talk to your baby about what you're doing. So, diaper off.
mhm,
Now let's put the diaper on.
mhm.
Make it fun, make it silly, make it playful, and keep it the same each time. And guess what? They are going to learn that language. They're going to expect it, and they will learn the words sooner. So you can really do it during every routine, anything you're doing every day, mealtime, bath time, diaper changing time, bedtime. We are huge proponents of this.
Yeah, that is when to do it. That's our whole MO. Like Brooke said, it's because we are busy moms and we're like, it's not practical for parents to sit down and do speech therapy. Okay, now it's 30 minutes to do speech therapy. It's like no one's gonna, it's not something that you could sustain. But what you are doing every day is getting your child dressed.
Yeah.
And when you just kind of incorporate those same words and same phrases every single day, over time, once your child starts gathering some words, you might say, let's put your shirt.
Mhm.
And then you wait, and they might start saying, on. And you say, yay, let's put your shirt on and getting them to talk. There's so many different ways that you can go about encouraging your child to talk during those routines. And it becomes natural, and you don't even have to overthink it. And that is our whole theory and
Yeah.
why we created what we created for
Yeah.
busy parents out there.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And it makes me feel as a parent like less overwhelmed thinking, oh, wait a second. I have to add this into my day where I'm working with my child. Like, no, you just do these things while you're taking care of your child anyway. Yeah, that's really good to hear.
Yeah, I think as parents, we're like, okay, oh my gosh, I didn't sit down and like play with my child for 15 minutes today, and like we all get guilt and whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, we're not about that. We're about, teaching you how to teach your child during those things that you're gonna do anyways,
Yeah.
and your child's gonna love it and you're gonna have that connection, and you don't have to carve out that extra time or feel guilty about it.
Well, I'm going to ask you a weird question. So, is there any research that supports things moms can do like during pregnancy to encourage language development? Like, I don't know, are the whole playing music in utero like does that have anything to do with language development, or is this just like not something that is a thing? Is there nothing that you can do?
No, I mean, they say that it's beneficial to like play music or even talk to your baby or read to your baby.
Yeah.
You can do that and that they can hear you. I mean, I don't think that a child's going to like start recognizing
Pop
words
out. Yeah.
soon. The research isn't quite there yet. And if it is, then that would be amazing. But I think that there are definitely benefits to your child hearing your voice and hearing conversation and hearing the prosody, the up and down of your voice and that parent eats voice, because it is kind of attention grabbing. And then when they come out and they're born, they recognize it.
Yeah.
It's more making them like comfortable with it and knowing you before you actually even lay eyes on them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's also getting you to kind of practice what you're going to be doing with baby after they come out too. So it probably gets you like a little bit more familiar with using the voice and reading a book. Let's read a book to my belly, you know.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. Which is easier for some people than others. That wasn't so easy
Probably.
for me.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah.
But hey,
Yeah.
still, I mean,
Go
it's
for it.
something to do. Right.
Yes.
So, what are some of the earliest speech milestones or language, development milestones that moms can be on the lookout for? Like, I'm talking early, like a couple months, because I know there's some things, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to make sure, that your baby is starting to like look in the direction of sound.
Hmm.
That's really important. So that's in the area of receptive language. And we want to make sure that they can hear and that they're kind of responding and localizing to
Hmm.
certain sounds. That's very important.
Hmm.
That cooing starts within those first few months. And that's when a baby's just kind of going like, and making those like coos and goos.
Hmm.
And that's really important too. We want to make sure that we're hearing cooing and that the cooing is moving into babbling because it is a hierarchy. And we want to make sure those vocalizations are happening because if a child's just like quiet all the time, they're not going to just all of a sudden, if they're not cooing and they're not babbling, they're not going to just all of a sudden start talking. They need to go through certain steps to be able to progress and meet all of those milestones.
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, those are for sure the earliest things. Also, in the area of receptive language, as the baby gets closer to like 6 months, they might start to recognize certain words. 6 to 8 months, like you might say, "Where's daddy?" And like they might start to look in that direction
Mm.
of dad, or, anything really familiar, your bottle, or, things like that.
Yeah. And I mean, gosh, that even can happen at like 4 months sometimes.
It
Like, I
can.
remember holding Stella when she was, gosh, maybe we were in Florida and I think she was like 3.5 months old or even 4 months. And I was like, hat. And I had a hat on and she kept bringing her eyes up to my hat. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, Brooke, come here. And I was like, what? Hat. And she'd bring her little eyes. And I was like, she knows what a flipping hat is.
She's a
That is
genius.
so cool.
Yes.
She's like, she's a genius.
Yes.
Like she's 4 months old and she knows what a hat is. But why did she know what a hat is? Because I repeated that word to her over and over again because I showed her the hat because I pointed at it over and over during our daily routine. So that really can help.
Yeah.
That's right. And ultimately, we just want parents to be aware of those receptive and expressive milestones. So, those, communication milestones in general, because you want to make sure your child is within the range. And there always is a range, but you won't know if they're falling behind unless you're familiar with what they're expected to do, within a certain age range. So it is really important. And we actually have a milestone checklist
Oh, cool.
that we provide for free. And so any listeners out there can find it on our website or in the link in bio in our Instagram.
We'll link it in the show notes page too for people to check out.
Great.
Yeah, and another, really important one in that 3 to 6 month range is making sure a baby's watching your face when you're talking to them. Like we were saying, when you're using that parentese voice, when you're exaggerating those sounds or cooing back at them, are they watching your face? Are they watching your mouth? Are they looking at your eyes?
Mhm.
That's really important. We want them doing that,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of cueing in on it
Yeah. Yeah.
and smiling, having a little bit of showing happiness and that they're kind of interested
Yeah.
in your voice, or in your face. That's some big stuff.
Yeah.
It seems simple, but it's that connection.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, and especially it's great for second and third and, however many babies when they first start smiling and when they first, that first laugh. But I remember how cool it is with your first baby when they go through those progressions. They're like,
Yes.
oh, they're starting to smile. And it's like, oh, I know that laughing is eventually going to come, but it is cool to see the progression.
It's very cool.
Yeah,
There's nothing better.
I
And
know.
it goes so fast.
I know. It's so sad. It's so great, but it's also so sad in a
I
lot of ways.
know.
It is.
Well, do you guys have any tips to help moms feel a little bit less anxious about speech development? Because I know, especially now that, everybody's on the internet and on Instagram, like you compare your baby with somebody else's baby. And I know I've texted you guys about my younger one versus my older one, like comparing my two kids.
Mhm.
So any tips for moms like me or moms out there who are just anxious about their kiddos, like, oh my gosh, is my kid on track or
Yeah.
what's going on?
I think we always say give yourself grace. And you know what? You are going to compare because it is human nature to do that. So,
Yeah.
in a way, allow yourself to and forgive yourself for doing it because it's okay and it's normal and natural. But also know that your child is on his or her own path, right?
Yeah.
And that might look different than your best friend's child or his older sibling. And again, just being aware of kind of those milestones and being on top of it so that if your child is falling behind or if you are concerned that you can bring it up with your pediatrician or perhaps get an evaluation from a speech and language therapist. The earlier you're able to identify any delay, the better. Early intervention is key, and it's not something to be ashamed of or embarrassed of. There are millions of children out there with communication delays and so many other delays. And really, the best thing you can do for your child, if your child is delayed, is to acknowledge it, accept it, and get them the help that they need.
We always say too, your child's capabilities are not measured in milestones.
Mm.
So it's kind of a strong quote. Like your child is capable of so much. Your child has so many strengths. And like, although they might not be meeting these milestones, like there are so many other amazing things that your child's doing and capable of. So we always follow that up with meet your child where they're at and help them from there. And that's why we have the resources that we have because, we don't want there to be shame around it. Like Brooke said, every child's on their own unique path and journey, and every child's different.
Hmm.
And it's just important as parents that we know what to do to meet our child where they are at and help them progress from there.
Yeah. Love it. Oh, see, you guys just made me feel so good. All right, the sound of that baby crying means it's time for this week's segment of Birth It Up Babies. All right, this one says, hi there. I just wanted to say thank you so much for your natural series course. It totally made me feel more educated and safe as a first-time mom. I delivered June 2nd and labored unmedicated to 10 centimeters over 16 hours. I then was rushed for an emergency C-section after baby's heart rate dropped. However, I am totally at peace with the experience thanks to taking your course. Oh, I love that. I don't love that you had to be rushed for an emergency C-section because that can be really, really scary. But I love that you came away from it at peace because so often that's not the case with patients that we have. They don't know what's going on and they have some trauma as a result. So I love that you felt informed and this situation happened that you weren't expecting, but you were able to come away with it at peace, like you said. Are you interested in birthing without an epidural? Did you know that simply wanting a natural birth isn't always enough? Many mamas fall into the trap of wanting a natural birth without fully preparing for a natural birth. And often that results in an epidural and plenty of disappointment. And girl, there is nothing wrong with having an epidural, okay? Let's be clear. But if your dream is to go natural, you need straightforward birth education so you know exactly what it takes. Birth It Up, the Natural series, will help you feel and stay confident and in control during your unmedicated birth. It's simple. Access the class, erase the unknowns, and get ready to rock your natural birth. To learn more, head over to mommylabornurse.com/natural birth. That's mommylabornurse.com/natural birth. All right, let's go right back into this week's episode. Well, I have a last question before we kind of wrap up. What was it like personally having your own children as speech pathologists, especially in those first years. And was there any like real advice that stands out after having gone through it yourself? Like, do you feel like you were different, you practiced differently, or anything changed like after having kiddos yourself? I know personally, as a labor and delivery nurse, my practice certainly changed after becoming a mom myself because I could have a lot more empathy for somebody giving birth. Not
Sure,
to say I
yes.
wasn't a bad, labor and delivery nurse before, but it just, gives you some perspective and you can relate a little bit more.
100%. I think, again, with that, especially with your first baby, you're focused on so many different things. Like I have to say for me, I mean, of course I wanted her to be verbal and,
Yeah.
talk so much and whatever, but I had to get through like sleep and feeding and all the other things. And there are so many things on your plate as a new mom. And so once you get to that spot where you're kind of cruising, like for me, I felt like it was like the 3-month mark.
Yeah.
Then yeah, I mean, I think as a speech therapist, you talk to your child with the intent of building their language kind of without realizing it, because that is what we are taught to do in school. And that's what we do in our working with our clients all the time. So,
Yeah.
both Bridget and I, we just for sure naturally, talk to our clients that way. But Bridget, I think you could kind of share, because we developed our programs, our online courses around the time that Stella was a baby. So we really implemented our specific strategies with Stella, who's the youngest of the 5 kids. And Bridget, you can talk.
Yeah.
I mean, all of our kids were early talkers, but it's really interesting, like, because we use those strategies. She was like our guinea pig, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and it was really crazy. Like, yes, you're right. All of our children were early communicators, but like she was just on fire because I think we were so cognizant of using all of those strategies all of the time. And I literally was like, you know what? I'm just going to implement everything that we're teaching parents to do with her.
Yeah.
And what happened was like, I mean, oh my gosh, she just really soared. Like, I want to say by like 14 months, I think she was saying like 250 words.
Oh,
Like it was wild.
wow.
It was like crazy, 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 like very, very crazy. And we're like, oh my gosh, like this is not that we didn't know that it worked, but, and obviously it's going to work different for every child out there and every family out there. But we're like, dang, like everybody needs to know this because this wasn't hard. Like I think a lot of people also say, like, well, it's because you're a speech therapist. So that's why it's easy for you. And it's like, no, definitely not. Like it's just it we believe that any parent is capable of doing those little simple tweaks to build your child's language and speak with them with the intention of building their language. It really can make a huge difference. And it was nice to have a child who could communicate early on.
It makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, it does. It can make it a lot easier. Like obviously you're still going to get like behaviors every now and
Yeah.
again. It doesn't solve it, but it does make it better when you can say, "Can you tell me?" and have
Hmm.
them actually be able to voice their wants and needs. The whole thing is whether a child can speak or even verbally or even non-verbally, our whole thing is to teach parents how to get your child communicating with you in some way, shape, or form, whether it's verbal or nonverbal, to get their needs and wants met. That's the most important thing. It's not learning numbers and colors and all of that from the beginning. That can come later. That is important. But what's most important is that your child learns and knows these words that can help them get something that they need or get something that they want from you, because that's usually when their frustration will set in.
Yeah.
So, what tools and words can we give them to help decrease that frustration, which then in turn will decrease your frustration as a parent?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I get frustrated a lot, especially with
Yes.
my little one, because he's, he talks a lot less than my older one did. And I remember, like, with Walter, with my older one, just him communicating so well from the beginning. And there were plenty of days that he just didn't cry and he was just so easygoing and no problem. And, a lot of it has to do with personality. Like, Ryland's a lot more just easygoing, is not like that's not in his personality at all. He's just
Yes.
not easygoing, and Walter is. But yeah, Walter was able to communicate a lot earlier, and that made it easier for him, and he didn't get frustrated. And it also made it easier for me because I didn't get frustrated. And with Rylan, it's just a little bit harder. We just have a little harder time communicating with each other.
We all have that.
Yeah.
You do. Even my son, my middle son, my daughter was so verbal and very articulate, like had amazing articulation from an early age. And then my son, also very verbal,
Yeah.
couldn't understand a thing he said.
Yeah.
And I thought, gosh, I did nothing different. Like I did everything the same. But again,
Yeah.
every child is their own child. And he just had a lot of those like typical errors for like a little guy, for a 2.5-year-old, but he just had a lot of them. And so he was really difficult to understand. So like even being a speech therapist, I couldn't prevent that, right?
Yeah.
I did help to fix it by really over exaggerating sounds and doing all these things. But it just goes to show you that like every kid is so different and you have the same two parents, but they can be just completely opposite. And so it's all good. And
Mm.
comparison is the thief of joy. So you just have to
Yes.
accept your child and just go with them, move with them on the path that they're on.
Yeah. Love it. Well, before we wrap up, I just thought of something, a tip that I saw on y'all's page that really resonated with me, because I feel like we always fall into the trap of, especially with Rylan now that well, I almost said 15 months. Oh my gosh. No, he's not 15 months. He's almost 2. I always would say, hey, say milk. Can you say this? Can you say this? And I love that you guys are like, no, you don't even have to do that. You just talk and they will repeat after you.
Yes.
Yeah. So we always say, you say that word, say
Yeah.
that word over and over again.
Yeah.
There are some kids that like if you say this, they'll say it. Like Stella,
Yeah.
I would be like, Stella, say this. And she would say it every single time. She was a parrot and I loved it. But,
Yeah.
because that's nice sometimes. But a lot of kids will really get deterred and like want to move away from the situation and elope and
Yeah.
not verbalize at all, and it will have the reverse effect. So we always say to parents, make it fun, no pressure. Once we put talking pressure and we're like,
Yeah.
say water, say
Yeah.
water,
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I'm not saying water, no way.
Yeah.
Whereas like if you take your water and you like gurgle it and you're like, water,
Mhm.
and you drink it, water, and you're making it really fun, and then you hand it to them, they're going to be more apt to repeat that word after you.
Well, guys, where can we connect with you on Instagram and your website? And tell me a little bit about your courses too, because I know you guys have fabulous courses.
So you can find us. Our website is just speechsisters.com. And on Instagram, we're at Speech Sisters. And yes, we do have 2 courses. We have a course for parents of babies, newborn to about 14 months. This is called Talk on Track. And really, it's exactly that. It's sharing tons of strategies and tips about how to get your baby to talk on track and to meet those early language milestones. And then our second course is for parents of toddlers, age 14, 15 months to about 36 months. It's called Time to Talk. And again, still really getting in there and helping your child become more expressive, just following kind of a roadmap of what you can do at home during your everyday routines to get them there.
Yeah. Love it. Well, thank you guys, Brooke and Bridget. This was fabulous. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. This was great.
It's so great. Thank you.
All right, guys, that wraps up this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in and letting me be a part of your motherhood journey. It is truly an honor. If you like what you heard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And I love hearing what you guys think of the podcast. So if you're liking what you hear or you have a suggestion, I'd be so grateful if you'd go ahead and leave me a review wherever you're listening to help more mamas just like you find the show. What do you think? Are you starting to feel a little more confident about your pregnancy and birth? Well, if you want more, be sure to head on over to mommylabornurse.com/podcast for today's show notes and a library of episodes so you can keep getting educated before your upcoming birth. And while you're over there, be sure to check out the blog and learn about our online birth classes. Find it all and more over at mommylabornurse.com/podcast. See you next week, same time, same place.